Well, US Vice President JD Vance has arrived in Israel expressing optimism that the peace treaty with Hamas will hold. I think everyone understands that's a big ask, and JD Vance himself was not above asking for a little extra help.
Christians have many titles for Jesus Christ, and one of them is the Prince of Peace. And I'd ask all people of faith, in particular my fellow Christians, to pray that the Prince of Peace can continue to work a miracle in this region of the world. I think that we have made incredible strides over the past week. We're going to have to make a lot more, but I think with your prayers, with God's providence, and with a very good team behind me, I think we're going to get it done.
Joining me now is former Israeli government spokesperson Eylon Levy. Eylon, thanks for coming on the program. It will be a miracle if the peace treaty holds, will it not?
It'll be a miracle if the peace treaty holds, because Hamas has not accepted the peace treaty. President Trump laid out a 20-point plan for peace, and Israel said, yes, 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 we want all of this. Hamas hasn't. Hamas hasn't accepted that it must disarm, it hasn't accepted that Gaza must demilitarize, and it hasn't accepted that Gaza must de-radicalize. The opposite. Hamas is not demilitarizing, it is remilitarizing. It's not handing over its weapons, it's taking other people's weapons in the Gaza Strip. So what we need now is pressure on Hamas, especially through its state sponsors, Turkey and Qatar. It's not enough just to give back the living hostages. It has to give back all the dead hostages, and then it has to give up its weapons and lay down its arms so that this war can finally end. President Trump's peace plan says Hamas is going to be dismantled one way or another, the easy way or the hard way, and everyone in Israel hopes this can be done the easy way, and Hamas understands it's game over and it's lost this war.
Well, Vice President JD Vance was calling on everyone to be patient. Here's some of what he had to say.
I think what you're seeing from our Gulf Arab friends, certainly from our Israeli friends, is a certain amount of impatience with Hamas, but we're going to keep on working at this process, and we're going to keep on trying to bring the deceased hostages home, but also make sure that all Gazans are able to live in a prosperous and safe place.
JD Vance admits there's a certain amount of impatience in Israel. How long will Israel be prepared to sit and wait for this process to play out before saying, you know what, we need to go and finish the job ourselves?
Indeed, Israel is impatient to keep its people safe. It's impatient to bring back the hostages whose bodies are being held in Gaza by Hamas. And it's impatient to end this war for good and put this crisis behind us. Now, President Trump has said he's not putting a deadline on how long Hamas has to disarm, but this is the brilliance of the Trump peace plan. It says that this crisis is going to end with Hamas relinquishing its weapons and leaving power, whether it wants to or not. And what we need now is pressure on Hamas through its patrons to do exactly that as quickly as possible. Because every day that goes by is a day that Hamas is not loosening its grip on power. It's re-establishing its grip on power. Hamas doesn't realize it's lost this war. Hamas is rebuilding its terrorist army, and we need massive global pressure on Hamas now to end this swiftly, immediately, and not drag out the crisis that it began when it launched that invasion of Israel 2 years ago.
Eylon, I hear what you're saying about more global pressure, but what would that pressure look like on a group like Hamas, who are essentially a religiously motivated ideological death cult? How do you put pressure on those kinds of people?
Because the difference between Hamas and Islamic State is that Hamas has state sponsors, countries like Qatar and Turkey that have been supporting it all the way through the war. Hamas only agreed to give back the hostages because Qatar and Turkey, under American pressure, told Hamas that those hostages were a liability, not an asset, that it had to give back the hostages in order to end the war. And now those countries that have been helping Hamas need to pressure it to lay down its arms and end this conflict once and for all. Hamas needs to be left with no choice. Right now, its back is not against the wall. Hamas is reasserting its grip on Gaza, it's rebuilding its terrorist army, and it needs to understand it can have no future in the governance of Gaza. Right now, it thinks it does.
How fine is the line for Israelis, particularly the government, between, on the one hand, appreciation for all that the US administration is doing, and on the other hand, frustration that the US is taking the lead and Israel are effectively having to take their cues from Trump about their own security?
Israel announced after the October 7th massacre, all it wants is to remove Hamas from power so it can never do this again and to bring back the hostages. We now have a plan that has not only brought back all the living hostages, it lays out an international framework for Hamas to leave power and lay down its arms. There is a peace plan on the table. Israel has accepted it. Israel wants the full implementation of the Trump peace plan, every single point. Demilitarization, de-radicalization in Gaza. Hamas doesn't want that. So is there frustration? Yes, but it's frustration with the terrorist army that launched this war and doesn't understand it needs to end it for good by laying down its arms so the people of Gaza can move forward to a better and more prosperous future, and the people of Israel can sleep safely in their beds again.
Here's what JD Vance had to say about the bodies of 15 hostages not yet returned to their families in Israel. Take a listen.
It is a focus of everybody here to get those bodies back home to their families so that they can have a proper burial. Now, that said, this is difficult. This is not going to happen overnight. Some of these hostages are buried under thousands of pounds of rubble. Some of the hostages, nobody even knows where they are. That doesn't mean we shouldn't work to get them, and that doesn't mean we don't have confidence that we will. It's just a reason to counsel in favor of a little bit of patience. This is going to take a little bit of time.
Eylon, I can't imagine the anguish of those still waiting for the remains of their loved ones to be returned.
Yeah, the families are in anguish. Let's remember there is a body in Gaza of a soldier who was killed and abducted in 2014. Hamas has been holding onto his body for a ransom. It hasn't lost Hadar Goldin. It knows exactly where Hadar Goldin is. In the last few days, we've seen Hamas drip, one body, two bodies every day, as if it's suddenly finding them. It knows exactly what it is doing. It knows where the bodies are. It's trying to squeeze further concessions out of Israel. And it's really important that Hamas give back all of the bodies of the hostages it murdered. Just now, Israel identified the body of Aryeh Zalmanovich. He was 86 years old when Hamas invaded his community on October 7th. Hamas murdered or abducted 1/4 of his neighbors. He was 86. He was murdered in captivity and he was just returned in a coffin. So the return of those hostages' bodies is a reminder that Israel is fighting against pure evil, against a death cult that has been holding onto bodies for a ransom. And we don't believe them when they say they can't find them. Clearly, they're managing to find one or two every day, and they need to free all of them now.
Just before I let you go, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said yesterday that if Benjamin Netanyahu set foot on Canadian soil, he'd be arrested for war crimes. Here's what he had to say.
Justin Trudeau said that Canada would honour the International Criminal Court arrest warrants, i.e. Benjamin Netanyahu would be arrested if he came to Canada. Does that stand under your leadership?
Yes.
You'd be prepared to do that?
Yes.
Just quickly, Eylon, your reaction to that?
You know, I hope that the great people of Canada never experience an act of war like the October 7th massacre, and jihadist terrorists never perpetrate such barbaric atrocities against Canadians, not only because of the barbaric nature of those atrocities, but also because they have a leadership that clearly won't fight for them, that would respond by surrendering to the terrorists, by not standing up for innocent people slaughtered in their beds, who would allow the terrorists to get away with it. I think Mr. Carney should hang his head in shame after he empowered Hamas by recognizing a non-existent Palestinian state and rewarding Hamas for the October 7th massacre. He really shouldn't wade into discussing the Middle East crisis anymore. He should quit before he does any more damage.
I should point out our own government also recognised the state of Palestine and refused to say what they would do if Benjamin Netanyahu were to visit Australia. Eylon Levy, always great to catch up. Thanks for your time tonight.